So we're sat in one of our latest HMO projects in Southend-on-Sea with Kane and Leanne from L&K Estates, is it? L&K Estates. Yeah. We're HMO Designers. This is Tim, my business partner. My first question to you guys would be, what made you want to get into property and why specifically HMOs?
So we got into property 3 years ago now.
Yep.
We were working in London, both in the finance world, working there for about 7 years, I think, and trying to work our way up, classic sort of career path.
The daily grind.
Yeah. But we always wanted to be in property at some point. I think we just had a misconception that you needed tons of money and we wouldn't be able to do it until maybe we were retired and we've earned our money in the city and sort of built up property one by one. And then COVID was a bit of a game changer, wasn't it? Which sounds a bit sort of cheesy, but...
No, but it was, to be fair. So we actually bought a flat in Crystal Palace. So that was our first kind of property that we bought together. And we lived in that for just over a year before COVID hit. So we were really enjoying living there. But it's like most places in London, you don't get much for your money. So it's a 2-bed flat, but we got cabin fever working from home. My job in the city was quite sociable as well. And so as soon as that all stopped, I realised that actually after 7 or 8 years in the same job, I'd probably had enough of it. And so we had a conversation, didn't we, around what we wanted to do next. And we've been kind of keeping a track of auction house to see what was coming up. And it kind of snowballed from there, really, didn't it?
Yeah, saved a bit of money during lockdown, and we didn't do tons of research, and we sort of thought, we'll go homes under the hammer style straight into flips. That'll be fine. We'll just find something that's run
Auction
down and do it up.
Buy a bus stop, just add a bit of value to it, it'll be fine.
So it all just went from there, really. And then we sort of found, obviously with flips, unexpected costs cropping up and having your money tied up until it sells before you can sort of go again. And we quit our jobs by then to do property full time. Thought we're going to go all in, but we need to replace our income somehow, and flips isn't going to be a way that's going to grow our pool of money, but it's not going to get us the monthly cash flow. So we thought
you
HMOs,
need both, don't you? You need both, which is what HMOs are good for.
That's kind of where it all started.
Yeah, cool.
So what's your end goal? Once you've got a few HMOs.
It's a good question, that.
Yeah, we haven't really thought end goal, but I think our sort of shorter term goal is five HMOs will sort of bring us back to our kind of city salary. So that's the next
goal, isn't it? And then we'd look to diversify from there. So we haven't kind of completely mapped out where we'd want to go, but potentially new builds, potentially service accommodation, depending on the area.
So larger developments.
Ideally.
We were having this conversation on the car up actually, that HMOs is a really good stepping stone, I think, to get you the cash flow that you need to kind of quit your job, and then also you kind of get the lump sums from the commercial refinance, and then you can use that to go on to do larger developments, right?
Definitely.
So it's a kind of natural stepping stone through the property ladder, if you like, to do the bigger stuff.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
It's nice that you guys have that ambition as well.
The other short-term goal, which I forgot, is obviously to move out of your parents' place. So
that.
That'd be, that 6 months is 3 years later. That was something we forgot to mention, didn't we?
So have you guys lived in HMOs yourself?
No.
You
did at uni.
And it's interesting because before we got into property, I didn't know what a HMO was, even though I had lived in one, and I think I didn't realise that what I was living in at the time at uni was a HMO. Obviously, it's just a house share or whatever people call it. But I lived in 2 HMOs, and obviously very different to what we're trying to do.
The digs that we lived in different kettle of fish.
It's character building,
I mean, you've created some phenomenal accommodation here, and it's targeted at professionals, with a little bit more money, so they want that kind of higher end model, right? Whereas we were just looking for the cheapest possible HMO at the time to live in as a student, because it's all you could afford. But I remember kind of hearing about how many HMOs the landlord owned that had the HMO that we were in at the time, and I kind of totted it all up, and I thought he must be taking in a crazy amount of money, but he wasn't providing nice accommodation. I think this is the natural next step to creating something a lot nicer for the tenants.
Definitely. I think we always said, didn't we, that we will only create something that we would want to live in ourselves, and we're our own target market, so it's been quite easy in that sense. And we just
Because you're kind of fitting it out for yourself then, aren't
This,
you?
yeah,
Like,
exactly.
what would I like?
Yeah, where would we want to
I
be?
could see myself living in a place like this, you know. If you just wanted to save a bit of money before buying your first house and you wanted to live, you know, in the city but you couldn't afford a studio flat, which is, you know, 1,500 if not $2,000 a month.
Particularly with the way bills are at the moment.
Over $2,000 with bills and everything.
True.
Bills included here. It's a really nice place to live. It's social. You're going to meet other people, so it makes a lot of sense for young people, I think.
Definitely. So did you guys meet in a HMO then at uni? I'm assuming.
We met in halls at uni.
Nice.
Yeah. Then
2 doors down.
Studied architectural technology together.
Nice.
2 doors down from each other. Yeah. Tim was a lot of help to me actually. With exams. And
I remember
like
the first time I met Ed, and he was just so hungover he could barely speak to me. And the night before, we were at Freshers, weren't we? And we were like, "What course are you doing? Architecture." And he was like, "Yeah, I'm doing architecture." Cool, we'll be buddies then. And then we just walked the next morning in silence.
I was hungover the night before. But yeah, so we studied together, and then I went to a practice called Adam Architecture in Winchester. After I graduated, Tim went on to Simpson Hilda, did quite different things. I did big country houses for billionaires for a while, managed construction sites. You did
project management for like primary healthcare, so like big PLC companies, public funded companies, and then just basically managing their assets. So doing upgrading works, doing project management on the architectural side, looking at builders, helping out with builders, basically making sure that the work that was being completed was for a good price. Basically, and making sure it was getting done as well. So that alongside
and slightly smaller projects.
Alongside works in the New Forest, big country houses, listed buildings, pretty much everything, crematoriums, almost everything we've probably worked on at different scales.
And then Tim went on to get his full architect's degree as well. I went travelling for a bit, then came and then we set up together.
You got a different kind of degree,
I got a degree in travelling the world. But no, I learned a lot from travelling. I don't know if you guys have travelled much, like taking time out to do
just
it.
holidays, but not like.
I felt I went away and then I read Arnold Schwarzenegger's biography. I don't know if you've read it. It's called Made of Steel, I think. But that kind of gave me the idea about entrepreneurship, and I was like, I don't want to go back to the 9 to 5. So I did go back to that job because I did a sabbatical. So I had a job.
Yeah, you had something waiting for you.
But I knew that I wanted to set something up, so we just naturally came together.
Naturally happened,
and set up the business together, and the rest is history. It's been great.
And also, like when you go travelling, as much as it's about, yes, I want to go and explore and everything, it is a period of reflection as well about what you've got going on back home, isn't it?
If you don't want to go back, that's sort of quite eye-opening, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
So how did you guys get into specialising in HMOs?
Yeah, so I met a developer in Portsmouth through the Instagram account, and we did a load of projects together, including one of yours in Portsmouth, right? And then we just started to specialise and niche down in that market, and we actually found that we really enjoyed working in that market. And for me, coming from Adam Architecture, where I was doing huge country houses for billionaires, as amazing as that was, with cost being no expense, I wanted something more down to earth, which was kind of real people and people like myself. Having lived in HMOs and wanting to invest in HMOs, it was just an interesting place. And I think you meet a lot of interesting people through it, right?
We've met, the network that we've got now through all the stuff that we've done is amazing. And the people that we've met, quite inspirational, entrepreneurial, driven people.
Yeah, like
I think
yourself.
I thought it's describing me.
You kind of meet like-minded people who are aspirational.
It's exciting,
and want to develop properties and work in that market, and it's a great little melting pot, I think, of people like us all working together.
You bring it down to the end, is that everyone just wants to live a good life and free themselves up, and property is the way to do that.
And the repercussion of that is creating amazing accommodation.
Exactly.
It's a win-win, really, I think.
Yeah, we know before we started working with you guys, I'm not just saying this because you're here, but we did explore a couple of other architects. I won't name them, obviously. And they weren't they weren't specialists, and it's not because they weren't. Obviously, they were very good at what they do. But what we found is, particularly when we first started in HMOs, we did need a bit of hand holding because there's so much red tape, and you don't know what you're getting into. So we were like firing across properties that we thought would work, and saying like, what would you recommend that we do with this? We're thinking sort of along these lines, and then when you're going through kind of the proposed plans, we're sort of looking at each other going, that's not going to work. That's not going to pass. And there wasn't that kind of understanding there that we needed.
That's really nice to hear,
I think to add to that, it was a lot about how can we make this look on paper, I felt, with the architects, rather than actually putting themselves in the shoes of the tenants, right? Like you guys are very good at saying, well, actually, that might look quite nice, but that's not practical.
And this
that's
is how they'll use it in that way.
Exactly. So that's been really helpful. And so, as Kane said, we explored a couple of architects, and we just didn't feel as though they were really doing what was right. They were more just doing what kind of looked good.
Well, that's really nice to hear, honestly. Yeah, I think everyone should go and get other quotes and speak to other people, and it's nice to hear that you kind of came full circle and you know, we worked on this project together, and hopefully more in the future.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Trying to think of another question.
So what's next for your business?
Yeah, so what's next for us? We're just about to release an app called HMO Checker, which allows you to essentially check any property in the UK. It's going to start in London, and you can essentially put an address into it, and it will tell you whether it can be a HMO or not, because of 5 or 6 different parameters, including planning, building regs, financials, all of that good stuff to help you source a HMO. And the best part is it does it in about 35 seconds.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and we were talking about this just before, and I think, you know, hopefully you guys are going to give it a go and see how it works in Southend. But yeah, like I said, it will work in any city in the UK. So if you wanted to expand and explore other places, it's a great tool to help you to do that.
Yeah, I mean, ironically, we could have done with that probably, couldn't we? I mean, we can still do with it now, to be honest. But certainly when we first started looking for our areas, because when we did our flips, we were up in the Midlands, and the flips went quite well. We had some challenges, but we had a build team in place, but we were kind of 3 hours from home. And so we tried to then replicate the HMO strategy in the Midlands, and what you tend to do is kind of force it, because you think, well, we've got everything in place here. We need to make this work. But actually, I think if we'd had your app, it would have probably told us very quickly that actually, unless you can get into an existing HMO within that Article 4 area, it's probably not going to work. Or the houses are maybe not big enough to go where you need them to. So
I think the commercial valuations are a little bit dodgy on the north of England as well. Like, you can make it work, but every broker that I've spoken to finds it hard to give you anything solid. When you talk to them about it, it's all a bit smoke and mirrors. Whereas in the south, because there's so much history of HMOs, and there's a really good tenant base, and the kind of capital value of the bricks and mortar is quite high, they're more comfortable to do it.
We found as well that when we were looking in the Midlands, HMOs for professionals wasn't really as well known as in the south. And so that sort of felt like something that we were struggling to get a lot of information on. We were meeting other landlords and looking at their HMOs, and they were always for students, and so we couldn't get that kind of real comparison as to what
you want to achieve.
Because I think what you find is, if you earn good money maybe further up the country, you can, generally speaking, you'll be able to afford your own place a little bit earlier maybe than you would down south potentially. Hence, as you say, it's kind of either that student rental market or you've got homeowners, whereas further down south does seem to be, hopefully anyway, a more thriving kind of professional rental market, which is obviously who we're targeting.
Yeah, and I think other than that, we want to kind of take HMO designers nationally as well. We're targeting lots of different places. You know, we go as far north as Liverpool, far south as the Isle of Wight, dotted all over the place. So one of the main sticking points for that, right, is the local councils.
That's it.
But HMO Check is going to help with that.
Because actually that's going to check how many applications are being approved, how many are being refused, and actually you want to be able to get the officers' reports as well. Like, why are they being refused? You know, is the property that we're looking at, can we achieve that? Do we have enough bin storage? Do we have bike storage? All that kind of stuff. We can see what are the sticking points, because they are different. Every council's got different issues that they're trying to solve, and actually that's a lot of time to spend looking at reports. And actually, what we're trying to achieve is create a platform that reads all of those, summarises everything for you, so that when you're buying that property, you know what you need to overcome, and you know what brief to provide your consultants as well and build team.
This is it.
And actually, you're going into it not blind. You're going in, you know what you're trying to deal with, and actually we can all work together, and actually it's just smooth sailing from that point.
It's down to the little quirks as well, I suppose, with councils, right? We had a conversation around how on this road here, the bins being left out the front can be a big game changer. And obviously we would never have known something like that without chatting to you guys about it.
You've got the side access. That's so key. to making that work.
Which was a bit of a fluke.
Don't say that.
But this is it, you know, like you want to do and make sure you've done all of the necessary due diligence.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And you guys are really good at that, I think. And the HMO checker will just build into that.
Yes.
But you do have to have that underlying understanding as well as having apps that can help you to achieve that, like more efficiently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so that's a good point, because obviously when you take this nationally, and the app will definitely help. Obviously you're just 2 people, and I know you've obviously got a wider team, but is the plan to expand the team into those areas, or do you think that the app will actually take away some of that need, because you can do a lot of it from where you're living, obviously, rather than necessarily needing to be on the ground in these different areas?
I think 90% of what we do is remote.
Yeah.
And 90% of people that work with us are contractors. So we're quite a dynamic, I would guess, kind of young and fluid way of thinking, that we don't want to have a huge company with lots of employees that's quite static and not dynamic, so that we can pivot when we need to, when legislation changes, when we want to move location, stuff like that. We want to create a product that we can take to every part of the country, but do most of it remote and come in when we need to.
Yeah.
But yes, we do want to expand. And
we want to expand. We want to be big, but we want the company to still feel small in a way, which is a really nice saying.
Balance, isn't it?
So we still want to be a boutique design practice where it's very personal. We create good links with our clients, and every client that we have, we know exactly what kind of HMO they want. Some people want to maximise a room, some people want to maximise the en-suites for multiple different reasons and different tenant types, and we want to keep that. So we want every single time you come back to us and want to design with us, we already know exactly what we're designing for you, and it's quicker and less expensive as well. So that's what we're trying to achieve whilst going nationally.
Yeah.
I think we're nearly there.
Yeah.
I think, we've got
it's gonna be organic.
most of the product sorted that we can make national now, and the HMO checker is only going to help with that. I just wanted to ask you guys, what advice would you give yourself right at the beginning of your HMO journey, if you could, like, say, the sticking points and the pain points that you had at the beginning? Is there one kind of overriding factor that you'd say, you know, you could change or reflect on?
That's a good question.
That's a really good question.
I suppose one of the big things would be like trust ourselves, because at the start we probably fell into the trap of thinking that we needed to outsource everything, and obviously there are elements, like obviously we outsource to you guys because we're not architects, but at the same time we've kind of had an oversight of absolutely everything. So that's really helped us, because we like to think we're quite organised, and we've just had our ducks in a row, particularly with this project. We've been able to get everything done kind of to the timeframes that we wanted, and it's because we've always known what's going on, rather than it kind of being like, okay, that's not in our control, so we don't need to even think about it.
Yeah, I think we don't leave anything to chance, and I think we fully trust you guys, and we fully trust the interior designers we're working with, Roost, and we've built a really good relationship with our build team, and we know that small team, you know, we can rely on everyone and everyone gets on. And aside from that, we have control over most things, don't we?
I think trust is a massive thing. Like if you don't trust the consultants you're working with, and even from our side, we get a lot of business that we do is on gut feeling. So it's like we get really good gut feelings with certain clients, and certain ones it's just like it's probably not worth working together.
Definitely.
Because you've got to have that cohesion and that natural relationship to begin with.
These projects go on for a long time. So you need to be able to get along with each other and like each other as well.
And challenges along the way.
Yeah.
So and definitely. I think another thing that we always tell ourselves as well, which we kind of have learned during the 3 years we've had in property so far, is just everything will take longer than we expect it to. You know, even if things do run to the timelines that we're working towards, things take longer, don't they? And
they take longer.
Tenanting is taking longer. The build is taking longer.
Construction, property, and everything is really, really complicated. Because you've been hands-on, you've seen how much goes on in the background, administratively and construction-wise as well. So actually, the best time to test a client-architect relationship is actually when it goes wrong, and how you work together through it. That's the best thing.
Because something will.
This is
more
more
like
it's a small thing,
Yeah.
but like as Tim said, it's a very complicated industry, so there's going to be something that comes up in the road. And you need to be able to kind of get past it and work together, and not kind of
focus on who's
throw
done
your
what.
toys out of the pram on our side or your side.
Yeah.
You know?
Definitely like that, but that only comes from that trust being there, because you know then that you can go to someone, you pick the phone up, you can email them, and you're going to get the right kind of response back. And it's just sticking to it as well, isn't it? Like there's been dark times where we've thought, oh, have we made a mistake here? Because we did leave, well paid, kind of comfortable jobs, but when we look back over the last 3 years and kind of where we've come from,
right decision in the end then?
Right decision. I'll tell you when we move out of Leanne's parents' place, it's the right decision.
You get it.
Yeah. So it's been a good journey.
Yeah, definitely.
But I guess same question to you guys. Obviously, you came back from travelling, Ed, and decided you wanted to go and do your own thing. And obviously, Tim came on board as well. And you guys have got a really great business. So you clearly are happy in what you're doing, I'm assuming.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, couldn't be more thankful for kind of the trajectory that we've had to get and where we are now in such a short space of time.
Being able to play around with like AI, just being able to use the business and expand the business in quite new ways. Architectural practices are naturally quite old school. So us being able to kind of disrupt the architectural market in our own way and specialise, it's actually really good fun.
Yeah, and just jumping on every new trend, I think. Like I said, entrepreneurship is about pivoting. You need to be able to have that power. You don't want to be too stagnant and keeping to like the old ways of doing it. It's something we really hated when we were at practice. Like this is the way we've always done it. It's like, but why do you do it like that? Because you've always done it like that. There's so many other better tools and ways of thinking that could be more efficient, but in large practices it's really hard to make changes like that. So I think having the power to make those changes has been the best
and quick,
part about it.
just quick, and actually just us trusting each other. And if one person's got an idea, let's just run with it. Let's see how it goes.
Yeah.
I think that's a really underrated point, actually. We always say this. When we make a decision, it's great now that if it's the wrong decision, that's on us. And we've made that. Whereas when you're in your 9-to-5 jobs working for another firm, there's a lot more pressure when it comes to getting things wrong. So
I think the other thing is Tim and I are quite naturally different, and we complement each other. So I have certain skills and Tim has certain skills, and thankfully we're not trying to do the same things. Within the business, Tim's very much operations, I'm more kind of
front end,
marketing and front end. So that's been really useful.
Just fills the gaps.
It fills the gaps in the differences between us. But thanks guys, really appreciate you having us over to talk through the project, and I'm sure we're going to have a further look round and hopefully do some videography of the rest of the project, and hopefully we'll do another one together in the future.
Definitely.
Looking forward to it.
Thanks for coming all this way.
It's fine.